In this video, we're going to learn how to start and set up a Adobe Premiere project and put clips in the timeline and set it up. To begin with, when you start Adobe Premiere, you'll see this window, this little dialog box, which is going to let you choose what kind of thing you want to do. Do you want to open a project that's already been worked on, which there might be a list up here of the projects you've done, or do you want to start a new project? Today, we're going to click this to start a new project. The next dialog box that comes up is the new project box, which will allow you to choose a location and browse to where you want to save this project at. So I might open my documents and put them in a folder in here, or create a new folder. So I'm going to go to this area here, make a new folder. I'm going to call this Demo Project. So it's going to go in that folder. And click OK, and I'm going to name this Demo. And this is going to be the file name of the project file when you get this going. So Demo Project. So that's now going to be the file name of this project when I save it. And I click OK. So the folder I chose to put that in is going to be where all the assets for this project are going to go once they get imported or created. So the first sequence is the first bit of timeline. So I'm just going to call this sequence 1. You'll see that show up when I click OK. And it's going to take a moment for Adobe Premiere to start up to go to the main layout. Now this here wants to see a sequence in the timeline. If you don't see a timeline here with a bunch of tracks, you want to go to your assets window, your project window, and choose the first sequence and double click to open it. So now we see a timeline with nothing in it and nothing else in the project. The next thing we want to do is import our assets into the project. I've got some demo clips I've put in place here in this folder. And so what I'm going to do is select all of them. I can click the first one, hold Shift, and click the last one. So now I've got all of them selected, and I'm going to click Open. This will bring them into my project window where I can organize them, pull them out of, and work with them. Another good idea to do is to click this little folder icon right here for New Bin. It looks like a folder. And I'm going to call this Footage. So this keeps my project window a little bit more organized, and I can drag all those pieces by selecting them all and putting them in that folder. Okay, I can create other folders if I want to for things like titles. I can make ones for audio or whatever I feel like I need to use. So what we're going to do first is we're going to learn what the layout is of the Adobe project window, the Adobe Premiere project window. So here's the project window where my assets are, and if I double click one of these, it's going to show up in the preview window, the source window. So this one lets me preview a clip before I drag it into the timeline. This monitor over here is the program window, which I'll be able to use once I bring something to the timeline, and it will display what's in the timeline. I can pre-cut these up here. Right now we're just going to practice bringing them into the timeline direct. And here's the timeline. So the timeline shows me what's going to be actually in my sequence. So if I drag through this, you can see it showing up in the sequence window, the program window. So now I might want to do some trimming and cutting on this. So what I'll do is this is the zoom drag slider. So I'm going to drag this slider open, and now I can see more of the timeline. It's the same length, it's just that I'm zooming in on the timeline more so I can more precisely edit the piece. So I want this to end about here. So there's a couple of ways I can edit this. The first way we're going to learn to edit is by dragging the end. You see the cursor change. And now that clip ends at where I changed it to. So I can also do the same thing at this end. Let's start right here. Drag. And now I want to drag that right to the beginning of the sequence. So there's that clip. Now I can actually put lots of clips in the timeline. I can move this around to different tracks. Let's find another piece to use. So I'm going to open up another one. And I'm just going to drag through this. And I'm dragging the timeline slider. Let's get that right before the horse jumps. And this time I can create an endpoint by clicking Set Endpoint or I. Okay, and then I can take that piece once it's created that way, and let's find the out point that we want to use. Right after the jump. And let's click Out Point right here, or O. So I'm going to drag that to my timeline. And it's already pre-trimmed, so I can trim it in the timeline, or I can trim it in the preview window before I bring it into place. Now you'll notice that this is kind of a jump cut, which means that the two pieces are very much alike, and what I really want to have instead is two pieces that are distinctly different from each other, not so close. It looks So we'd want to start with a different shot for the next piece. So let's look for something that's different than that to start with. Okay, so we can work with our preview window over here again. There we go. And this one starts with a completely different shot. So again, I'm going to push in point and out point, and I can drag that in here. Now the reason I would have multiple tracks is it lets me organize my work better, and I can visually see where the tracks begin and where they end. So now that I've cut that one in there differently, I've got a different look like this. And we come back to this. So I've got a bunch of different horse jumping shots that are different from each other as we work through the picture.